What's up? Welcome into the CHGO Bears Podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook. Download the app. Use promo code CHGO when you sign up. What's going on, Bears fans? Adam Hoge, Carman, Kevin Kaduk sitting in with us today. We'll hear from Nicholas Moreano momentarily from Halas Hall with whatever news is left to come out of Halas Hall in 2022. Guys, it's almost the new year.
Well, first of all, great to have Kevin on the show, as per always.
Thanks for having me.
The head of content leading us to the promised land today as we look back on the year. I don't think there's going to be any big news today, Adam Hoge, but maybe there's going to be some big news today.
I believe the biggest news so far is that Nicholas Morrow's the honorary captain this week.
He deserves that. As not great as Nicholas Morrow has been all year, he's been a first-class individual. And,
sure.
He has played a lot. I think he's found his comfort zone in the Flus /
And it's been like 8 months since he was signed, and still every time someone says his name, I think you're about to say Nicholas Moreano.
Well,
every single time.
I thought so too.
Every single time.
Maybe I am, because Nicholas Moreano will be coming on here soon.
More is less.
Whenever Fields is done talking, I think we'll hear from him. So,
I got beef with Moreano.
You do?
Yeah.
Sounds like he whooped your butt.
Every time he beats me in ping pong, the dude can't wait to get out of here and do a video. Dude loses, I don't see any videos. First thing he does, right out the door, video.
It's also noticeable that he does it after he leaves.
Right. Just he acts all humble in here, doesn't say anything. The next thing you know, he's in the alley. The smile is from Lake Michigan to Soldier Field, and and here it comes. Moreano.
All right.
Some kind of teammate.
Have you offered to do a joint video in defeat with him?
No, I have not. So, okay.
So who's the good sport?
Moreano's greater than Carm. Fine.
We're gonna have to start doing post-match press conferences here at CHGO. I think to have this addressed in public.
Good idea. Yeah, For the record, I won game 1 yesterday and then just lost focus, and he took 2 and 3 in convincing fashion, and it was a distinctive loss, and I don't feel good about it, but I'm very excited to talk Bears.
Okay. Well, Kevin's in here today and you should check this out at allchgo.com. He has the top 10 Chicago sports stories of 2022, and many of those being Bear stories, we thought.
Many of them are quite depressing.
Yes. Well,
9 of the 10 are like
Pat Foley and Eddie Olczyk leave Blackhawks boot.
Blackhawks commit to rebuild. Sky fail to win again.
Bulls end playoff drought, but resurrection stalls.
All right.
Tony La Russa is a complete nightmare.
Well, we thought so. Go check that out for your depressing recap of 2022. Way to sell it, guys. We thought we would discuss the top 10, and then I think it actually turned into 12. So we're just going to go in chronological order. The top stories that the Bears have had in 2022. Look, they haven't won a lot of games. I think we look back on 2022, and good or bad, very pivotal year in this franchise's history for many different reasons. They go beyond the football season. They go beyond the quarterback. We're talking stadium changes, president changes. There's been a newsworthy year for the Bears, and not a lot of it is actually on the football field.
I would think that we can all agree that this has been, as far as moving the franchise forward and everything that's happened since 1985, this has to be, this could be a different show, but top 5 best Bears year since then.
Okay. Well, that's with the assumption that it all works out.
Yes, it's a big assumption, but we have legitimate hope. I think it's been an amazing Bears year. The quarterback is good. We've literally never been able to say that. Haven't been able to say it since McMahon.
I know.
So much of being a Bears fan is about treading water and kind of being a fan of a franchise that isn't necessarily a vanguard in the sport. I mean, definitely isn't a vanguard in the sport. They're not progressive. You know, obviously they are a charter franchise. They're owned by the woman who is the daughter of George Halas. And it kind of reflects. And now I think the year 2022, we're looking at a state-of-the-art stadium, which I think this franchise deserves. We're looking at a quarterback who plays football in a manner different than what we've seen. And I think part of the fan base still doesn't understand like what football is supposed to look like in 2022, and that Justin Fields does represent that. And so when you look at 2022, yes, it has been depressing. yes, a lot of things have gone wrong. Yes, there have been a lot of losses, but if you're hopeful and you're optimistic, it just represents a beginning.
State-of-the-art QB. Yeah. I wouldn't even if we're underlining what's gone wrong, I have a hard time doing that.
Yeah. Well, let's get into it, because I think, unlike Kevin's list of, the Chicago stories, a lot of these for the Bears, at least you have a positive spin to them. At least we can do it, word it that way. Let's talk about the one that probably could be ranked number one if we were to rank these. It probably is. I don't know if it's at the top, but it's definitely probably in the top two. But just in general, the regime change. So going all the way back to January of last year, and we're grouping these together, but the firing of Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy.
Woo!
And and flipping that into the hiring of Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus, just setting the stage for everything else that's happened this year, charting a new course that was badly needed, and starting this rebuild, this dead cap year that they are now deep into and almost done with. It was quite a move for George McCaskey. Not necessarily surprising, but one that had to be done, and one that set the stage for pretty much everything else that happened this year.
We knew Nagy was on the way out, but Pace was a little bit surprising, right?
There was.
I mean, that was a long time ago, but
Yes, I'm actually thinking about it right now. There was more of a 50-50 feel.
Yeah, I would agree
to
with
whether
that.
or not I remember we were up in Minnesota. So many of these regime changes happened after a game in Minnesota. We were in Minneapolis having dinner. It was an emotional week because it was the same week that Jeff Dickerson passed, and today's the 1-year anniversary, which I think we'll talk about a little bit later. So we're kind of having this emotional dinner, and we're talking about all the firings we're expecting. And I remember it kind of being 50-50 split among the Bears media about whether or not that was going to happen. And I got put on the spot that week on some show I was doing, and in the end I said, yeah, I think he is going to be fired. I think they're going to clean house. But it wasn't a foregone conclusion. I think after it happened, everyone was like, oh, yeah, duh.
Right.
But you had a different feeling before it was happening.
There was that whole train of thought, well, he got Halas Hall built, and the McCaskey family views him as, an extra grandson or whatever. And I think now what we see...
And I wrote a lot of that, by the way. I mean,
yeah.
But it was part of the calculus.
And I don't think
involved.
it certainly wasn't untrue. I mean, I think, I think...
He also drafted Justin Fields.
He did.
And Tevin Jenkins.
And almost got us Russell Wilson, but that's a whole different story. I think now we look back and see what Ryan Poles has done and what he's committed to, and moving on from Ryan Pace has really emboldened the franchise to be able to do that. You're not tied to any of your past decisions. You're starting with a clean slate. You're given that slate to draw something on, and Poles has taken it.
It's weird for me right now remembering it, because I'm thinking in my head that I was absolutely 1,000% certain they were both getting fired. But now you guys are making me remember that, well, George McCaskey really loves Ryan Pace. And so I remember now getting nervous about it. Like, there's no way they're keeping this guy. There's absolutely no way that you can go forward with that. But then it was a little bit of a surprise when they actually did it.
There was conversation about whether or not they would elevate
Right.
He was
Pace to like a president position and bring in a new GM that would handle the roster.
And that's another good remembering for me right now, because if I had money at the time to bet on it, I would have bet that he was getting slid somewhere in the organization. No. Get out of here.
Yeah.
Thank you for what you've done, and you will be able to survive in the NFL, but it's not going to be here.
Now, quickly after that, you get into the GM search where they bring in Bill Polian. A lot of it felt very similar to when they had Ernie Accorsi in here, and they ended up with Pace and John Fox. Right. And, I think there was a lot of skepticism about how this was going to all play out. They were relatively transparent, though, about who they were interviewing, kind of doing them at the same time. What are you laughing at?
I'm remembering the photo of George McCaskey picking up Ryan Poles from the airport.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, but this is what's interesting is how this has turned out. Remember, Ryan Poles
in his Bears jacket.
Yes, classic Bears varsity jacket, picking up Poles at the airport. But
human touch.
Poles was scheduled to leave Chicago after a second interview and fly to Minnesota to have a second interview with division rival, the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah.
And the Bears decided, this is our guy. Let's not let him go. Let's hammer out this contract with Trace Armstrong, his agent. And they managed to do it. And Poles never flew to Minnesota. Minnesota ends up hiring Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah. I had not realized this until a conversation with Paul Charchian on 6-7 Score yesterday as I was filling in. I didn't really pay attention much to the Vikings draft class. It's horrible. I mean, they haven't had any contributions really from their rookie class this year, as they're a team that also wanted Justin Fields but didn't move up in the draft the same way the Bears did a year before. The parallels between the Vikings and Bears are going to be tracked. And right now, I think there's a conversation you can have probably for a different day, and maybe we'll have it next week because the Bears play the Vikings. It would make more sense. Yeah. But would you rather be the Vikings at 11-3 and going into the playoffs, or the Bears at 3-11, or now they're 3-12, 12-3, having potentially the number one pick in the draft?
That is such a we have no chance in the playoffs take, because the Vikings literally could win the Super Bowl this year, but I still might actually take the Bears because I would bet against Minnesota in the playoffs, and then I'm going to bet against their future. I'm going to bet on the Bears. That's an interesting conversation.
It is. So we'll have more of that next week. But to that full circle, they hire Poles. Poles hires Flus over Dan Quinn, and I think if you had to make me choose in that moment which of those two coaches, which we kind of knew at the time were the finalists, which one they would have picked, I think I would have put my money actually on Dan Quinn, because it felt like the Bears didn't need another first-time head coach. They needed somebody who had done it before. But he hires Flus.
I actually did put money on the Bears hiring Eberflus after kind of like reading up on him, and I looked at him. I said, this is a guy that's totally going to go in there and wow the McCaskies. And I got him at like 14-1. And
that's a great bet. I love
it.
Started
off pretty well. I was like, this guy is straight out of Central Casting. I mean, obviously the book is still out on whether or not it was a good hire, but I mean, it's already better than the Hackett hire in Denver.
Yeah. Yes.
You know,
we've got that
maybe
one.
Maybe not better than the Brian Daboll hire so far, but we'll see.
I think it's still too early to know, but I think there are things to be optimistic about in terms of the foundation that's been laid down, the championship habits, as Flus puts it.
Yeah.
And I do think that the fact that this team is 3-12 and there's really been no drama, and you and I have commented every week going into that locker room,
feels like Super Bowl champs.
It's been a long time. It's been a long time since there's been an adult in the room.
Yeah.
At leading the Chicago Bears, and it feels like we have that.
Also, just for the name part of it, we fired Matt and Ryan, and we hired Matt and Ryan.
Yeah. How many times have you written Ryan Pace? I don't think I've cleaned up.
I don't think I
have either, which is kind of weird.
I don't think I've made the mistake yet in anything written. I think maybe twice I've said it out loud where I've accidentally said Ryan Pace instead of Ryan Poles.
You've done a lot of podcasting, so we'll give you those.
I've done it.
Flus is easier because it's like
just Flus.
It's Flus, and it's not Nagy, and no one calls them Matt. But the Ryan Pace, Ryan Poles thing is different.
Every time I say Ryan Poles, I make sure that I'm saying Ryan Poles and not Ryan Pace, because I've done it 100 times. And that is a good underlining, too, that we don't think about Matt Eberflus. It's the Flus. Yeah. So the Matt is gone
We
away.
need him to make that jump, because we do need the Flus's loose shirts. Every pun that you've come up with, we need that T-shirt.
The Flusosophy.
Flusosophy would be huge outside of Soldier Field next year if they could start 3-0. Seriously, we could be out there.
I mean, that's so ridiculous.
It's the best.
Lawrence, you came up with it. You should copyright it.
Sure.
Flusosophy. We got to keep this moving, or this podcast is going to take 3 hours. All right, moving on from the regime change. The big domino that fell first came in March, shortly after we got started here. And
it was like the second Friday.
Yeah, I remember us all of a sudden having to do an emergency podcast. But the Bears traded Khalil Mack to the Chargers. I don't think the trade in itself was surprising. I think we weren't but again, at the time, I think it was a little different because we did hear Flus. One of the first things he talked about was how excited he was to have Khalil Mack and Robert Quinn. Turns out he didn't really have either of them. So the big move, just signaling what this season was going to be all about. Bears trading Khalil Mack, taking the dead money, the first of many of those types of moves to reset this roster. He adds a second-round pick, which ends up becoming Jaquan Brisker later. And this was, a clear message to everyone involved. This is what the 2022 Bears are going to be about.
Hit the like button if you enjoyed the Khalil Mack trade in the moment, thinking back on it, or even if you look at it today, you can hit the like button and feel good about it. Yeah?
I mean, just hit the like button if you hated it, too.
Yeah, but I'm liking my incentive-like moments here. But it was that moment for me when on the Mack trade, I was like, okay, the Bears hired the right guy. That was like, okay, very good. Let's pick a direction, and let's get whatever we can for our assets that we're not going to win anything with. Good job, Ryan Poles.
It felt like they were truly moving on. I mean, obviously you got rid of Pace and Nagy, and that was the whole thing. But Mack was so emblematic of that 4-year period. Because we go back to the opening night in Green Bay and what he represented, and all the Mack jerseys we saw. And he seemed like the next great Chicago linebacker. And to see him move on, it was like, okay, that failed. It sucked. It failed. But at least we're writing it off before we can't get anything for him. So that's what stood out to me.
It was, not huge balls, but took some gumption. I'm coming in here. I'm trading our best player. That's what I'm doing. My name's Ryan Poles.
There's been a lot of big moves by Poles this year.
Right?
Many of them that are going to be on this list here. And then there's some failed moves as well that's not necessarily should be considered failures, but just things that almost happened that didn't happen. And a lot of that had to do with the next thing that came on the calendar, which was free agency. And we were sitting here as free agency went live doing the show, and the Larry Ogunjobi news came down. And, I thought we were a little skeptical at the time at how much money it was. It seemed like because I don't think we were really expecting him to spend a lot. It wasn't an insane amount of money, but it was like, okay, but they're they need a 3 technique for this scheme,
right?
And this is the guy they're going for, and they think he's a piece of future. And then a few days later, Ogunjobi fails his physical,
basically,
and I think, to Poles' credit, not only how he handled it, but how he explained it later, being very real about it. He sat in the back of a car with Ogunjobi and told him how heartbroken he was that he couldn't give, this guy the life-changing money that he'd been working for his whole career. And off Larry went. And we didn't know if he could sign later with the Bears for less money, but he ends up in Pittsburgh, where he's been solid when healthy, but not always healthy.
And Larry's done okay for himself. He's not $26 million, but he's made $8 million this year. So that's good. But that was a big swing and then a big miss. And I was actually, I don't want to say happy that it didn't work out, but I was skeptical that you were spending that level of money on a team that was definitely not built to win. It was kind of confusing at the time.
And so Flus comes in here. He thinks he's going to have Khalil Mack. That doesn't happen. All right, well, at least I'm going to get a 3 tech. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Failed physical.
Sorry, dude. Have you ever heard of Justin Jones? He's going to scream at New England and coming up into week 7 and make some news for
Carman
CHGO.
will be happy once he's interviewing him.
Yeah.
It'll be fine.
Yeah, and that becomes really a story for agency from that point. A lot of 1-year deals, a couple 2-year deals. Jones was one of them.
Flus, I got this guy's name's Nicholas Morrow.
Nicholas Morrow.
How do you want that Matt Adams guy that you've had?
Matt Adams, Joe Thomas,
Al-Quadin Muhammad.
Al-Quadin Muhammad.
He's going to wear 55 for us. He'll be on the field the entire year, and you'll never notice him.
I do notice on this list you don't have Byron Pringle doing donuts with his kid in the back.
I guess the offseason arrests could be on there. Matt Adams, one of those arrests.
The Byron Pringle press conference on doing donuts should have made the list.
That was bizarre.
That's a bad job by us.
It would no. It's
What happened? Nothing. Nothing happened. Why are you smiling so much and giving us 3-word answers? And why do I feel like I'm in the movie Get Out? That was top 5 strangest moments of the year. The Byron Pringle, uncomfortable. I hate the media, but I'm not going to let you know. But even though I'm letting you know, even though I'm smiling, press conference.
Yeah.
Can we replay that before the end of the year?
No, we cannot. I don't want to relive it. The other failed signing was Ryan Bates, the guard from Buffalo. That was a restricted free agent. That the interesting story with that one was we were with Poles when he found out that the Bills were matching that offer. And he literally didn't know, and we were kind of the ones that informed him, and he was like, "Oh, what, really?
No way."
Yeah, this was at the owners' meetings in Florida, and so you got the raw reaction of Poles being disappointed.
So he kind of like dropped his head. What?
I forget if it was like he had found out like seconds before walking up to us, or literally was being informed by us. But it was like the raw reaction.
Yeah, we talk about
amazing.
Because what happened was I think it was McDermott was also talking to the Buffalo media simultaneously and told them that, and so it ended up on Twitter, and then we were like, "Hey, so." Sucks you didn't get Bates. He's like, what? Yeah, it's Sean McDermott just or Brandon Bean might have done it. The GM there, whatever. That was going outside. Sorry, what were you gonna say, Kev?
We talk about like so many things going right in 2022, but in his private moments, do you think Pace is at least a little disappointed that some like more things haven't been put in place in 2022?
He just did it.
What?
He called him Pace.
Polls. Yes.
Dude,
join the club.
I spoke
it
into existence.
It's okay.
Where's the jar? Give me the.
It's hard, man.
Yeah. Anyhow, well, Pace is probably also disappointed, but you think Poles is?
I don't know. I think it's still, as we continue to talk about these storylines, comes down to the quarterback, right? And most of that,
right?
I think he's probably happy with the Ogunjobi thing. I don't know about Bates. Bates has been starting for them, though. I mean, I think he's been fine.
I took the Bates. The Bates thing would have been good for the Bears, but I'm assuming it would have been. But I took that as a feather in Poles' cap too, because he identified somebody who was underpaid, and the Bills were like, "Okay, fine, you're right. We'll pay him and keep him." I didn't think it was a terrible moment. I thought it was a good moment, but. Yeah. I think we need more Poles Cam. I haven't seen him on camera enough, but like every time they show him, he looks like he's constipated up there. Like he does not look like he's having a whole lot of fun this year. Don't you think? Like he's always.
I think he does want to win these games, like as the games are going on.
I don't believe that.
Well, that's not the stories we've heard from the press box, and like his reaction when things don't go well.
Maybe that's. Okay, I don't want to say the guy's faking his reactions because he's probably not. But I think at the end of the day when he gets to the Poles pillow at night,
yes, you really struggle with this this idea. They're like the fans. You're not actively rooting against the Bears during the 3 hours the game's going on. And I don't think the GM is either.
I'm agreeing with you. I don't think that in the moment that he is. I think he wants to win the football game. I would agree. However, I like to think that when the Poles pillows hit, well, okay, we're fine.
Yes.
Like this is, this
which is the answer to Kevin's question.
This sucks right now, but it's, for the future I'm good. Which did we answer? Did they answer that question?
Yeah.
No, but you think that he's more having some regrets.
I don't know if there's regrets, but it's like, okay, well, I wish, it's a different story because Ogunjobi hasn't, gone to Pittsburgh and, become an absolute wrecker. So
it's gonna have a say.
So maybe you feel like you did dodge a bullet there. I mean, I don't know, but we've talked all year long. even though that these were 1-year deals and that they were flyers on some of these receivers and defensive linemen, to have none of them flash and be like, okay, here's a piece that we're going to have for the next 5 years.
Fair. Yeah,
that's got to be somewhat of a letdown.
That's fair.
Well, and I do wonder specifically about the Claypool trade.
Oh, that's another one.
And where he's at.
And the Bayless pick.
Yeah,
that's another one.
Which brings us to our next story. The NFL draft. Ryan Poles, to his credit, turned a lack of picks, a lack of a first-round pick, into 11 picks by the end of the weekend, which was actually pretty impressive. And but I think the biggest story there was that the top 2 picks on day 2 in the second round were defensive players, not offensive players. And we sat here on draft night. We were a little surprised by that, but also kind of liked the picks at the same time. Kyler Gordon, Jaquan Brisker have been, I think at this point, successful draft picks. At least you're encouraged about them going forward. But then the third-round pick coming in the same night turned out to be Velus Jones, and Will DeWitt loved the pick. The rest of us were like a little skeptical, kind of a gimmicky guy.
Will's catching strays. You loved that pick, Will DeWitt.
He did. He was very.
Well, and do you remember Nick took a victory lap because he actually mocked Kyler Gordon to the Bears at that pick.
That's right.
And then you were pretty happy with Brisker.
Yeah.
Even though he was a Wisconsin record the year before.
Yep. Yeah. He was. But, and I think just to add the amount of guys later, which we'll still find out how impactful that is.
That Saturday was a lot of fun because I forget how many picks they had going into the day, and we thought it was going to be a pretty easy day, and then everything just got crazy.
Yeah, I want to say it was 4 turned into 8.
Something like that.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
I remember in my prior CHGO life going in to do the WGN radio draft show on Saturday, and Ed O'Bradovich having an absolute meltdown that they had not drafted an offensive lineman.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I promise you they're going to draft some. And then they drafted 800 of them, and to his credit, Braxton Jones, at least for one, has worked out, I think, better than anybody could have ever expected. That's probably the biggest feather.
How many of the 11 do you think you could name without looking?
Of the draft picks?
Yeah, you think you name all 11?
No way. I know I couldn't.
I think so. Well, we know the first 3. So then there's Braxton Jones.
Nope, you jumped one.
No, they didn't have a 4th-round pick. Well, he didn't say do them in order. He just said name them.
Okay, keep going.
I'm calling it up.
Braxton Jones. Zach Thomas was the guy who's not on the team anymore. Dominique Robinson.
I think was taken ahead of Braxton, but maybe I'm wrong.
Elijah Hicks, Trenton Gill.
You said Jatiri Carter?
Jatiri Carter. I had not named that one yet.
Back end offensive lineman.
There's another offensive lineman we're missing.
Treston Ebner.
Jakar Carter.
We did that one.
Doug Kramer.
Doug Kramer.
So,
ILL.
Doug Kramer was the guy that popped in my head, and I couldn't think of his name. So I'm like, wait, I don't think I could remember half of these guys.
Yep,
Now that I want to look at
that was all of them, though.
If you couldn't remember his name, what popped in your head?
You said Hicks?
Undersized center.
Okay.
Did undersized center pop in your head? Who was the undersized center from Illinois? ILL. I wanted to see Doug Kramer play this year. It's too bad that he flashed it. Zach Thomas.
The one person not on that draft list, but who
we're gonna get there later.
Okay.
So he gets his own separate story. That guy.
But
first, because we got a lot more stories to get through. The ComEd Energy Efficiency Program is committed to helping families and businesses in the communities we serve save money and energy. ComEd offers free facility assessments that can help find energy-saving opportunities, whether it's lighting, HVAC systems, commercial kitchen equipment, or industrial processes. Here's how this works. An authorized engineer will work with you to develop a detailed assessment plan specific to your goals and needs. These can be done in person or virtually and last approximately 2 hours. Then within 3 to 4 weeks, customers will receive a report detailing energy efficiency projects that they can start working on immediately. Each recommendation will include estimated energy savings, cost savings, project costs, potential incentives, and simple payback. Don't wait. Get started saving money and energy today. For energy saving tips and to schedule your free facility assessment. Go to ComEd.com/poweringbiz. And if you're ready to sign up for a facility assessment, call ComEd at 1-855-433-2700 during normal business hours to speak with a ComEd Energy Efficiency Program representative. Email business@comed.com or request an assessment online on our website at comed.com/facility assessment.
Get your good eats and good health on by hitting up our friends at Greenridge Farm, Chicago's local meat and cheese company, offering you a better all-natural option. That's what you need. That's what you love. All-natural deli meat, sausages, their famous meat sticks, of course, perfect for tailgating, happy hour, sitting around doing nothing. It's all there for you. All-natural meat sticks, 16 grams of protein per stick. How do you do this? You go to greenridgefarm.com. You order any 3 meat products, and any 3 of them that you pick are going to be absolutely delicious. And then you include a pack of meat sticks in your cart, and those meat sticks are coming to you for free when you use the code CHGO. This is a great thing to do for your food life. And by the way, if you don't want to order at greenridgefarm.com, then look for them in your refrigerated section, Costco's, Sam's Club, any local Chicagoland grocery store. Greenridge Farm, pick it up, put it in your cart, take it home, eat it, you'll love it, and think of CHGO when you do it because we love you. greenridgefarm.com.
Oh, I love Greenridge Farm. I love Greenridge Farm.
I love Greenridge Farm.
All right. Now, moving on to training camp. I think Roquan Smith and Family Day certainly ends up in the list of biggest stories of the year. Really, the consequences of it, it really shifted everything. I think all of us, when Roquan Smith held out at the beginning of camp, we're not necessarily surprised by it. We thought the two sides would eventually come to an agreement. We were a little skeptical if it would actually happen before the season, but I don't think I ever envisioned a scenario in which Roquan Smith was going to demand a trade, let alone do it in the way that he did it by calling out Poles publicly in a statement for not negotiating in good faith, going above him to the ownership over his head to say only ownership can fix this, and I think it really changed the whole tune of everything and was ultimately the biggest reason why Roquan Smith was traded.
It's an interesting ending to what you just said as far as that was the biggest reason, because I do wonder if he was the perfect citizen, if we would still have ended up at this point. I certainly hope that we would have, that it wasn't based on Roquan acting out, because that would be super short-sighted. But to the overall point, that was an absolutely enormous day. And it did not feel good. And it still doesn't feel great right now, honestly, for me. But
also in camp, that's worth mentioning as one of the biggest stories of the year to me is what Tevin Jenkins dealt with. Kind of surviving camp, the trade rumors involving him that he recently spoke out about and was like, yeah, I didn't know if, we were going to move.
From problem child to hero.
And then he emerges as a starting right guard and has a great year. So
Tevin has been one of the better stories of the whole season. I mean, really. Yeah. And I don't know if he's going to play again this year, but even if he doesn't.
Sound like he wanted to play last week, so I wouldn't be surprised if he plays this week. Yeah. An injury report will be interesting today.
For Roquan, it just seemed like, okay, we're going to build around Fields on the offensive side of the ball, and Roquan is the cornerstone and the soul of that defense. And, yeah, you're able to kind of probably move on from what he does at that price. It's something the Bears didn't want to tackle, but I do think it creates a little bit of a void in leadership on that side of the ball, and I don't think we've really figured out who's going to really take that mantle quite yet. Yeah. And I guess it's probably Eddie Jackson.
Yeah.
Yep, he's tried to step into it, but
how long is Eddie Jackson going to be here?
I think Jalen Johnson
is
another guy. I think somebody like Jaquan Brisker could quickly emerge as, a young captain type on the defense. And I think the answer to that question is probably guys that aren't even on the team.
Yep.
Some big acquisition in the offseason. Comes in with credibility and work ethic that the younger guys look up to.
Yeah, we need a good player with a voice to emerge there. Like Justin Jones is a talker, but he doesn't have the chops to be that guy. And the Brisker one's interesting, but he's quiet, right? I mean, I don't see him being. Maybe it's different behind, when it's just them, but I can't see him being a super vocal dude. At least not yet. Maybe he can grow into
still
it.
Seems real young in that.
Sanborn's not. Yeah, I don't think so.
So
yeah. As the season approached, two big pieces of news came down that. One, I don't know if it's got enough attention, quite frankly, but Ted Phillips announcing that he was going to retire in 2023. I mean, this is a big thing. It's a big storyline for the offseason. Who's going to be the next team president? Who charges the course of this franchise? And then this is kind of, I think these two can kind of go hand in hand. But then right after that, the Bears revealed actual visual plans for the Arlington Heights Stadium project. And boy, what a day that was to go out there at Hersey High School and hear the whole presentation, which was very impressive, more impressive than probably realistic. And, it was just interesting to hear, the Bears acting like a professional NFL franchise.
It was a very happy day when Ted Phillips retired. Very happy day on Twitter when he announced his retirement. It was?
Yeah. It wasn't. Then it just kind of disappeared, I feel like.
Yeah. Haven't heard from him at all this season.
It's kind of underrated that.
I actually had one of my biggest tweets of the year that day. This was one of my favorite tweets. Ted Phillips' reign atop the Bears spanned 5 U.S. presidents and produced 3 playoff victories.
I remember that. Yeah.
That's outstanding. And that night in Arlington Heights was the first time that we ever got to do a remote experience with Greg Braggs.
That's right.
Which, I mean, let's be real.
What a night.
I mean, that's a top 5 experience. The way Braggs was able to peruse and make friends at Hersey High School.
And have his laptop open to the Bills-Rams game.
Right, had the ability to watch football and half pay attention to the press conference.
I still love that the Bears did that the night of the season opening.
You guys were there the whole time. I remember seeing a picture of you.
I was very intrigued by it.
That was the picture. You were doing the Simpsons guy. I forgot his name, doing this, and you were
Carm
falling
made fun of me
asleep.
the entire next day on the show for how into it I was.
Lenny.
Carm was asleep.
Yeah. It was
Carm was asleep 10 minutes into it.
It was so unbelievably boring. But Hoge came in there, and the media was asked to sit in the last row. Hoge's like, "Yeah, no, I'm not sitting back here. we're going at least midway up." Braggs, who was not technically a part of the standard Bears media, had already gotten his seat up there, so we sat with Gregory and his TV, and Hoge paid attention, and I fell asleep.
Yeah,
2023 is going to be, I think, produce a lot more headlines within Arlington Heights and the team. It seemed like 2022 was actually pretty low key in terms of this, a lot of the legal stuff had already been taking place, but now it's all right, they have the plan. And now they got to figure out who's going to pay for it.
Well,
and
that's still on the
easy.
table that maybe the biggest headline ends up being that it's not happening.
Because they can still get out of the purchase. They haven't.
Well, they haven't closed on the property yet.
Right.
And
they said that was early. It
certainly seems like what was the representative last week that put out that statement, just ripping the Bears for asking for public money. Right. And I don't know that it's a done deal that they're going to get. And it sure seems like the Bears are trying to line up what they need before they actually close on the property.
I'm texting the mayor's office right now again. How are we looking?
Do you know who Jack Sanborn is?
How are we looking for doing something early in the year?
That's how they'll respond.
Yeah. All right. Now we get into the stadium a little bit. Our biggest stories from actually in the stadium. And we got to mention week 1, the QB slide. It started a revolution. It started a great shirt.
Our most popular shirt.
You see on our screen with Io wearing it. What a day in hindsight. One of the Bears' 3 wins of this season.
Amazing day.
And they were 1-0. To put in that perspective, the Bears at one point were undefeated.
Top of the NFC North.
Just
undefeated.
Biblical amounts of rain. We were trying to get a tailgate together for that week 1. It didn't come together in time.
Thank
and
goodness.
Thank God.
Thank God.
So much rain. I remember we were sitting here doing pregame, and it was just like
Raining in here.
just
Yeah.
pouring. You could hear it on the roof, and I thought the roof was going to cave in. It was raining so hard, and the Bears win. So
It was a fun game.
great feel-good memory from early in the season.
The slide was unbelievable. I started dreaming at that point of the miracle playoff run. They were 1-0, then they were 2-1.
We're 2-1 too.
And then they were 3-4, and I still had hope. But I think, check the tape. I believe I said something around that time about a 5-game win streak.
Oh God, you did.
I did.
That was a bad
5-game win streak.
Yeah.
I felt
But it should have been a 10-game losing streak you were talking about.
Instead, we got what turned out to be maybe the pivotal moment of the season. That I think in hindsight you can wonder, what do the Bears do differently if the result was different? But to me, the Thursday night loss to the Washington Commanders at Soldier Field was the worst loss of the season. A debacle in the way that, to the Bears' credit, I think for the most part this year, like the games they've lost, you kind of see them coming. They kind of go the way you thought. Not necessarily their fault because of the way they played. It's just sort of the talent and the roster. But that was the one game where it was like they made mistake after mistake after mistake, and it all ended with Darnell Mooney dropping a game-winning touchdown pass on the last play of the game, which I think technically went down as a catch, but he was short of the goal line because he bobbled it. So it's, essentially
after Dante Pettis was interfered with on 3rd down, but keep going.
So then we get to this mini bye, and I think it's fair to wonder, like, I still think the Bears make the scheme changes they do, but do they do it with the same urgency? Bye weeks feel different when you lose versus when you win. Mm-hmm. And I do think that there's a different urgency in there, and the Bears come back with, like, this whole new look. Justin Fields' season from that point on is much different. And I think when you not only factor in the draft pick, obviously, but just what that loss sparked in terms of changes, I think that ended up being maybe the most important game of the season.
Luke Getsy started to come out of his shell after the Commanders' loss. Yeah. And he denied, by the way, that no, we're not stealing everything from the Ravens. We're not doing that. Okay. Whatever you're doing, it looks a whole lot different. Congratulations. We all of a sudden are starting to breathe because the quarterback doesn't look like he looked against the Commanders. And it wasn't, and Fields at the end did put him in position to win, but he doesn't look like he looked against the Houston Texans when it was very much in doubt that the Bears had an actual quarterback. They figured it out. That was, I think it's an absolute worthy underlining because that was a definite something switched, and all of a sudden the Bears have become an organization that has a future.
And let's get to his last few stories before we get to Nick, who's standing by at Halas Hall. But so sort of related to this, but in the coming weeks after that mini bye, Justin Fields arrives. This has to be the number one story of the year, the way it's played out. I think
it's number one on my list of Chicago sports stories.
Yeah, I mean, it is everything. I think we sort of forget that we were a little bit in panic mode.
Yeah.
That Houston Texans win felt like a loss.
Yep.
And our post-game show was very negative for a good reason. There were some concerning signs there. And all of a sudden, coming out of that mini bye, you got the win over the Patriots. Things started to look good, but it was really the next 2 weeks after that. He plays well against the Cowboys in a loss, one of the more lopsided losses the Bears have been in this year, but he played really well.
Is that the one we deemed a moral victory and everyone got mad at us? Was that the Cowboys?
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, there
was a couple moral victories. To me, my favorite game of the year was probably the Dolphins game, even though they lost.
And if you're going to pick a single game to kind of say this is the moment Justin arrived, to me it's that game. He broke the single-game rushing record for a quarterback in that game with the 178 yards. That may have been the week that Danny Parkins threw a party on the score following a loss.
Yeah.
But it really, you were looking for a multiple week validation of what you had seen. And after 3 straight weeks of him looking like that, it was like, okay, I think this is for real.
Yeah.
He ran for the 178 that you just underlined, and then he went for 147 the next week against the Lions.
And the
And
bad interception, then came right back with the touchdown run.
and Cairo Santos missed an extra point, and they lost by 1. Then he ran for 85 the next week in a 3-point loss to Atlanta and hurt his shoulder.
Seems like after the Atlanta loss, at that point, everyone kind of moved on to like, all right, let's just kind of lose as many as we can.
Yeah.
Although I was pretty angry when they lost to the Packers. We remember that just because it's the Packers. But
Well, the Atlanta loss had the Fields injury, and that's when,
Right.
Bragg started losing his mind about playing him ever again. I think Braggs is okay if Fields just retires. We got our quarterback. We
Go
it
out on top.
happened. Don't get hurt. Wrap him in bubble wrap. Never play him again.
Bragg says the moral victory game was the Minnesota game.
I don't know. That was before the Washington. He played better in that game, but I don't
think we said that was a moral victory.
I don't think that was a Amir Smith-Marset.
I think
it says it on our thumb. So if we go back in the YouTube archive,
I think it might have actually been.
Was it the Minnesota game?
I think
It
it's
shouldn't have been, though. To me, it was the Cowboys-Dolphins back-to-back.
Yeah, but in the Minnesota game, he crossed over 200 yards for the first time, and they had the ball in the fourth quarter, and they were driving.
He scored, and then it was called back by that guy from the Iowa Hawkeyes, whose name we won't mention.
It was his
yeah.
first. It was his first
Yeah.
good game of the year.
Yeah, and
Amir Smith-Marset.
and Amir Smith-Marset had the ball ripped from him.
Your guy.
That was my guy. That was first locker room crush of the year.
Bragg says I forget nothing.
ISM indeed, William
He's like
Kane,
an elephant.
who's been on fire all day with his comments, by the way. Yeah.
Okay. Final 2 stories then. Obviously, the trade deadline then, which was the culmination. They trade Roquan Smith. They trade Robert Quinn a week prior to the deadline. And then they add Chase Claypool, which was surprising after they had traded those guys away. Now they turn one of those second-round picks into Chase Claypool. Obviously, one of the big stories of the year. Probably the number one criticized move at this point. Questionable move of the season. I know, far from being finished.
Yeah, it's not going to be a fun time when the Ravens come on the clock at whatever, 33 or 34, 35.
Or 32, right? Potentially.
It could potentially be 32.
Not going to be fun.
Yeah.
That was our most watched live show of the year when they traded for Claypool. That's also when they almost traded David Montgomery, if you listen to Greg Braggs. And
We have a lot to debate this offseason, but it would be so much better if we were like, all right, who are we taking at number 1 or number 2? Who are we taking, like...
Yeah, I'm still annoyed that was the pick. I know they had to because of the Packers, but it was.
I know. It is
Very
what it
nice.
is. Hey, maybe they'll add more picks somehow. I don't know who they trade away at this point, but
It's true.
they're trading out, baby.
But that probably won't happen until pretty close to so it's not that we have the entire offseason
that's okay.
to debate it.
All
Should
right.
be all right?
And then final
It's going to be great.
Okay.
final story before we get to Nick here. Jack Sanborn becomes the sand god. In the wake of Roquan Smith getting traded, Sanborn gets thrown in there as the Mike linebacker. I don't know what Carm's doing right now, but
I'm just saying, it's like, he was born, he's sand-born, and then he became a god.
and then you bought this jersey, brought it in here, and he immediately got hurt and is out for the year.
I didn't know it was still here. Hey, you're coming back.
You didn't know it was still here, didn't you? You probably paid like $100 for that.
I did, but I just forgot about it.
I forgot to text you last night. Jack Sanborn's little brother made a tackle for the Badgers, and all I was picturing was Mark Carman going,
Sanborn's got a little brother on the badge.
Sanborn with the tackle.
We got to go Sanborn too. When's he eligible? When's he in the draft? Let's go.
I don't even think he starts for them. He plays on special teams.
Doesn't matter. He's got the last name. We could have been Roquan and Sanborn. We'll go.
man.
But if we're gonna get Sanborn and Sanborn, I'll completely stamp that
Two
trade.
sand gods on the same team?
Two sand gods would be
Wow.
amazing.
That would be
If you
crazy.
could have gotten both Watt brothers, you would have done that.
Yeah.
so.
There we go.
There you go. But a significant story nonetheless, because Jack Sanborn looks like your starting middle linebacker going forward.
As far as on the field, he's the second best story on the team. Fields 1, Sanborn 2. Would anybody argue that?
Then Tevin. I think I'd put Sanborn ahead of Tevin just because Tevin still has the health concerns.
Yeah, I agree. Tevin's
Like, who's the bigger lock to be part of this thing going forward?
Sand God.
Yeah. Probably.
I think he is.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's a bigger story than Tevin, because Tevin's a big story considering the lack of offensive line.
You put him in front of like Brisker and Gordon.
Yeah, I agree. That's the back end guys.
I think Brisker has some competition for the top of that
Brisker's
list.
in there. Brisker's in that. Now we're in the knit of the pick.
It's good that there's.
You guys missed the biggest story.
Oh, God.
The birth of CHGO Bears becoming the place for
Damn
Bears
right.
talk.
Damn right. We couldn't have done that without Sanborn too, by the way. Somehow,
I mean, I think we did, but
we did.
Sanborn wasn't even on the team when we launched.
But we knew that Sanborn was going to be there at some point, deep down somewhere.
All right. You're right. That was the biggest Bear story of the year. CHGO Bears here. We're not going away, damn it. All right. Nicholas Moreano is at Halas Hall right now. We should bring him in and figure out what the updates are from Halas Hall, what we know. Nick, what do you got for us, buddy?
What's up, Nick?
What's going on, you guys? Real quickly, all I heard was Mark got the Jack Sanborn jersey. He gets injured the next time. That's like on Will level. Every single jersey that Will has gotten, that player has gotten injured. I don't like this this kind of consistent we have here at CHGO with guys getting jerseys and then guys getting hurt. So I think that's where it ends with the jerseys.
What's the percentage where a jersey purchase actually pays off? Like, it's not very high.
I'm 2 for 2 on my Blackhawks jerseys.
Okay.
Dennis Savard, legend. Never going to not be thought of as a Blackhawk in my eyes.
Did you buy that after he retired?
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, he might have.
You're not 2 for 2. That doesn't count.
He might have still. I don't know. He might actually. I don't know. I got it.
I'm 2 for 2.
I bought a Hall of Famers jersey. Holy cow, it hit.
I'm going to buy it MJ.
No, but that's the point. Is
Here's
I
the thing,
bought
though.
a jersey
With the way that even legends are canceled these days,
That's
you
true.
could buy a Legends jersey and then
That's true.
you still don't know if that's going to.
Anyways, him and Taser. Done.
I believe in your philosophy, by the way. I'm
a
going to buy
philosophy.
Yeah, the Flus Lawrence philosophy that you buy it when you know for sure, therefore it's a worthy investment.
It's a smarter move.
But the stud is the person that does what Kaduk's talking about, which head of content Kevin Kaduk, who I saw a chat earlier that was funny about that. You can identify a rookie, make a move.
Yeah.
And you ride it out.
Sure.
You called your shot.
I bought the Taves jersey pretty early on, so I felt good about that. But I don't think that was a risk. I mean, at that point, he was a captain.
Yeah. What about my Adam Burris jersey?
Great jersey.
That's a loser.
He won a cup, so that's
Love Burris.
And he's a Badger.
he's a Badger.
It's really the motivation.
All right.
behind it.
Anyways.
Loved Adam Burris. Okay, Nick's still here. Hi, Nick. Yeah, I think your point was valid though, and stop buying jerseys.
Conversation.
Buy fewer jerseys. Buy more CHGO gear at the CHGO locker would be my advice. All right, Nick. What else you got for us?
Yeah, real quickly, you guys. Matt Eberflus, Justin Fields spoke today, and we talked a lot yesterday about Matt Eberflus and the value he puts in these last two games and what he really thinks. Honestly, you guys, I think that he's looking at these two games as not must wins, but there's so much to gain. And Justin Fields actually talked about that too. But he said with these final two games, you get to see one going up against a divisional opponent for the second time, but a lot of development can happen in these games, an evaluation of a lot of players on this roster. And he mentioned that Detroit right now is looking to right the ship after getting completely dominated by the Carolina Panthers. He wants the Bears to kind of replicate that same mindset, to be able to right the ship, and wants them to learn, again, we've heard this all season, how to finish games and execute in those crucial moments. So kind of going back to the importance of these last two games. And he said, well, how do you do that, essentially? How do you execute in these crucial moments? And if it's beyond talent, what does it take? And he said it's about scheme, having players in the right position. And again, going back to his favorite phrase, about executing. And you have to do that in practice first. But he does put value in the last two games and what can be gained out of them. And he was talking about, like, hey, there's going to be different combinations, but with a lot of guys in IR, how creative can he get with that? Well, he did throw in a wrinkle about Justin Jones. Like, he has been playing that 3-tech, but maybe seeing him at end could be something that the Bears kind of look at in these final 2 games. But just seeing some change-ups, because there are a lot of guys injured, and there's only so much you can do with the players that are available up to this point. He also mentioned he was asked about like Justin Fields and being with a constant rotation of players due to injury, young guys. There's a lot of fluctuation happening with Justin Fields, but when you're the quarterback, he said, you're going to have adversity. So Fields and the coaches have to figure out how to put Fields in the best position possible when he doesn't have that starting offensive line that he normally would have. Eberflus, again, sees value in putting his player like Justin Fields in a position that maybe isn't the most ideal, but he still sees a value in it. He was also asked real quickly about Travis Gibson, who has been a disappointment up to this point, but he still thinks he has the body type, has played the run better as of late. He's been close. I know we mentioned that, on yesterday's show. He's been close, but he's pleased with where he's been with pressures. He just needs to learn, again, how to finish and execute. And then real quickly going to Justin Fields, he was asked about his foot, how it was feeling. He said it's swollen. It was swollen after the game, but he said it's fine now. And then the shoulder. He still has that shoulder injury, guys. He said it hasn't affected him too much. Certain things will affect him, like sprinting full speed and being able to use that arm to produce more power with running. But for the most part, he said it hasn't affected his game and what he's able to do on the field. But there are certain movements that still will linger, and he knew that coming into this game, obviously, and when he got the injury, that certain things will hurt him there. And then, obviously, we heard about the mesh charge and how defenses are kind of playing him a little differently. He hasn't seen it all too much, but in that read option play, it's like the DN's either going to take him or the running back, so he knows that's going to be coming from defenses. But in these last 2 games, he's noticed, like, yes, the Eagles spied him with a nickel cornerback. The Bills used Tremaine Edmonds for the Bills. So there's been some different people and different players that have been used to try and stop Justin Fields, and you're kind of seeing defenses adapt to that. And then kind of just going through the list of things that were also mentioned here. With Fields, obviously going to Ohio State, he was asked, hey, are you going to watch the game? Or with Ohio State, Georgia, right? And Justin Fields' sister actually is a softball player in the Georgia Bulldogs team. So it's like, who's your family going to be rooting for? He doesn't even know at this point. So he's kind of, seeing how that's going to play out on, when the game's being played. But obviously Fields also was at Georgia. So it's a little family dynamic there of who's going to be rooting for who and what's going to happen when those college football games happen.
So we're all Big Ten alums here. You guys root for Ohio State?
No.
I hate Ohio State.
Yeah, I don't either.
Yeah.
Are they the only Big Ten team?
No.
Will you root for Michigan?
No.
I don't like Michigan, but my hatred for Ohio State is way
I like
higher.
Harbaugh, so I'll probably root for Michigan.
I can't stand Harbaugh.
Whatever.
He drinks
I'm rooting
milk
for
over
Kentucky.
steak
in
with
this room,
steak.
by the way.
Wait.
I like Harbaugh. Whatever, man.
You like Harbaugh because of his Bears tenure or because of his personality? I need an explanation.
Bears.
Okay.
No.
Bears.
I do like that he was, he got through finally against the Buckeyes.
After being like 1-8 against them in Michigan State, should have been fired.
Whatever.
You
Luke Fickle's taking over.
I don't want to raid on your Harbaugh parade, but
I would root for Iowa though if they were in
come on.
in the Big.
What kind of look is that?
I hate the SEC more than I hate.
You can't.
Iowa's been in the Big Ten championship. It's the worst boring game ever.
Well, no. If they were in this, both whatever.
If you didn't root for Iowa over Alabama,
Serious.
come on,
I
man.
probably would.
Come on, man.
I'd probably.
Here, time out, you guys. With the Iowa thing, like, they're going to play in the Music City Bowl against Kentucky.
Huge.
Mark, you and I, we would both be rooting for Iowa normally. But I think we're going to root for Kentucky because of Will Levis. You want him to have a good game, get that draft stock going up, trade up to get a quarterback for one of these QB needy teams. I'm rooting for Kentucky. I'm sorry, Iowa Hawkeyes. Go Will Levis.
Also, maybe they'll fire Ferentz' kid. I mean, they won't.
Yes.
Maybe they
will. But that'd be fantastic.
I've got Big Ten pride. I like when you see, hey, the Big Ten is 7-0 in bowls this year. I get sad when it's like, oh, every Big Ten team was eliminated the first day of the tournament, which is what usually happens these days. But
The tournament's painful when they just go out like nothing, but we're used to that. And I don't care about the Music City Bowl, Iowa versus Kentucky, class of whatever I am over here.
Great bowl game. Northwestern played Kentucky in it. It was a fun game. Fitz went for
24-23 winner.
I think he went for it on fourth down like every time the entire game, including at the end to win
The
it.
days when Northwestern made
Wildcats.
bowl games.
Northwestern is very.
Yeah, it was like 2 years ago.
4 bowls in a row. Kevin,
They're winning them too.
you Cat fan, you that you're containing over there.
Man,
All right, Nick. Anything else from Halas?
Did Fields, was he limping when he walked up there? Give me just a temperature take on the Fields' mood. Was he in a good mood? Was he quiet, Fields?
He was in a so-so mood. He wasn't in a bad mood, I would say. He didn't have a limp or anything walking up to the podium. So I think signs are looking forward, and I'm about to head to practice, so I can maybe give you more updates after that. But yeah, so-so.
Come on, Nick. Carm needs something more to read into. He needs to know the mood.
We didn't get the news that you were hoping for, Mark. But there's always tomorrow, right?
No,
All right,
no.
get out to practice.
Thanks, Nick. That ship has sailed. It's
All right,
over.
let's get to these super chats before we get out of here. Steve B says it's always great when Nick is on the pod. I agree, Steve.
We love Nick, and we love you now too, Steve. Thank you for the super chat. Appreciate it.
We also have the Duke coming in 1999. CHGO need to burn sage. Chakra expert come in, get a priest to do an exorcism, do all the things to remove the curse, get it done before next season.
That's in
You're
regards
talking
to
about
the same
right?
word, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, the Sanborn curse?
The Jersey curse.
The Jersey curse. But like if we put it around the chakra and the sage and the incense burner that my dad had in his bathrobe, if you can go back a couple podcasts, can we?
Yeah.
The Jersey then is fine, right? I think you're absolutely right, Duke. And by the way, we owe you lunch or something. We want to meet you in person somewhere because you've really been an incredible super chatter, and we appreciate you. Merry, 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 happy New Year to the Duke.
I still can't believe you bought that. It's not cheap to get one of those customized jerseys.
I think it kind of is.
This one
No,
was
it's not.
Was that from the Sport Mart?
This
Because
was
they don't just sell Sanborn jerseys. You have to like go
Listen,
in and select the player. And it costs more.
I had to dial into my driving Uber money to afford the Sanborn, and it was worth it.
Okay, it was worth it to put them on IR.
Should we start videoing my Uber driving and?
You're Uber driver?
You're driving? You're an Uber driver?
This is some news.
In my head, I've got a content idea that I have the Carm Uber, and the video is going.
Cash cab?
No.
Basically, is your idea?
One of the Ponce brothers already
Yeah,
did
Phil
this.
Ponce retired and started Uber driving during the pandemic or before the pandemic.
I'm
No,
more-
it was one of his sons. I forget which one.
There
Oh,
are a
yeah.
lot of Ponces. That's
Yeah.
fine.
You're telling me that Phil Ponce stole my idea? Channel 11 Ponce?
No, his other son, not Dan,
Anthony?
Anthony.
Anthony Ponce?
It was a pretty good. I
He
listened to
stopped
podcasts.
working in TV and did this like
Yeah.
Uber driving where he was like filming it, and it was like
And what happened?
I don't think it went well.
It
I
didn't
don't-
go well?
I don't think it worked.
And now is Carm going to turn this into the After Dark, like Taxi Cab
Why couldn't
Confessions?
we
Like,
do
what's going
After
on
Dark
here?
from the cab, from the Uber? Get Braggs in there.
All right, hold on. We got a couple more super chats. This is
Braggs in the back seat talking to whoever gets in. What's up, man? No?
Rise and shine.
Rise and
taxi cab time.
You're in the CHGO Uber. Are you a Bears fan?
UBER.
Who's your favorite bear?
All right.
Rakeem.
Do you guys find it ironic that the number one free agent option we want, Darren Payne, is the guy we could have drafted in 18 instead of Roquan?
Roquan had a good run here, man. Let's not completely trash the dude, even if you disagree with my latest takes.
I guess my counter to that would be, well, Washington drafted him, and if the Bears signed him, that means Washington didn't keep him.
Yeah, okay.
You know, like, I don't know. But, yeah, I get where you're going with that. It's definitely interesting. It's definitely an interesting point I hadn't thought about. All right, Brandon, Carm, okay, we got a $5 super chat here, Brandon. Found out I got the big C. Thanks for making these videos and keeping me distracted and keeping my mind off of Bear Down. Off of things, Bear Down. Thanks again. Guys, I'm assuming the big C is what I think it is there, Brandon. Really sorry to hear that. We appreciate that you're here with us, and I I guess our stupid Bears banter. If it's helping you, man, I'm happy it is. Sorry to hear that.
Hang in there, Brandon, and advocate for yourself. Do the research. Do what's right, not to get too far down that track. But
best of luck, Brandon. I'm glad
Brandon.
that we can give an outlet to people. I got one email from an audience member who said 2022 sucked. There's war in Ukraine and economic situation is melting down. He's like, at least I know I can turn it on CHGO every day, and we're just screwing around and gets everyone's mind off everything. So,
yeah.
Well,
stuff out there. Yeah. And, today's – sorry to hear that, Brandon. Today's been an emotional day for a lot of us, too, it being the one-year anniversary of JD's passing. And we are handing out the Jeff Dickerson Good Guy Award at Halas Hall later today to – the Bears player that most helped the media do their job and kind of reciprocated that idea of being a good guy. And it's not always easy, especially during a 3-12 season. So we'll be giving that away around 3 o'clock. And that award has existed now. And each chapter of the Pro Football Writers of America have that. But we, after JD's passing last year, was actually Hub Arkish who came up with the great idea to rename the award after JD. And what a perfect gesture for everything that JD stood for. Not only just being a good guy, but also the way in which he handled a lot of the frustrations and things that can arise in that media room throughout the season. And he was always the guy that could somehow look past all of it. It was very remarkable. So
whenever I went up there back in those days was once in a blue moon, and I would sit next to JD, and I would not know something, and he was always the most helpful guy and always smiling. And I don't know. I just want everyone's saying the same stuff. The dude was first class all the way.
Well, we got to go because we got to get up there for that presentation, and I guess this is our last show of 2022 for us because we'll be back on Sunday, which is New Year's Day. Now, Will and Nick will be here tomorrow for their preview shows. Make sure you're tuning in at noon tomorrow for that Bears-Lions preview show. But it has been a crazy year for the Bears. For all of us sitting here at this time last year, I don't think we knew that. I certainly didn't. So whatever outlet we've been for you here this year, thank you for being here because we couldn't do this without you being here every day. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. Tell a friend about what we're doing here. Sign up and be a diehard. Thank you so much for your support at allchgo.com. It has been a remarkable year.
For real.
Amazing year.
Yeah, thank everybody.
So even better 2023.
Yeah, let's get a little couple wins in there.
Yeah.
No, we could do the show without you, but we wouldn't be doing it for long, and it wouldn't feel anywhere close to as good as all the support we've gotten. So thank you.
You need to be more specific, though. Get a couple wins next season because technically you could still get a couple wins in 2023 in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, we need to lose the next 2 weeks and then
Just wanted to make sure that was clarified. All right, we're out of here. Again, Will and Nick here tomorrow, noon, breaking down the Lions game.
And Bears After Dark tomorrow, too.
Maybe
Me
from a
and someone.
cab, maybe not.